Stop stressing now. 7 shocking reasons to trust God at 3 a.m. for peace, hope forever. The clock struck 3, shattering the stillness of the night. Outside, a cold wind stirred the trees, their branches scratched against the window like restless fingers. Inside, Sarah's heart raced, pounding against her ribcage as if trying to escape. The shadows around her whispered secrets, and she could feel the weight of the darkness pressing down on her. What had she stumbled into? The nightly horrors that crept in at 3 a.m. were not just figments of imagination, they were alive, creeping closer, waiting for vulnerability. Was she prepared to confront them? In moments like this, the air thickened with worry, wrapping around her like a suffocating shroud. The most terrifying part? It wasn't the fear of the monsters lurking in the dark, but the exhaustive thoughts swirling in her mind, the regrets, the nightmares, the cries for help that went unanswered. She suddenly remembered the legend, those who sought the divine at this hour would find peace. But what did that really mean? Could faith really stand against the terror of loneliness? Sarah had heard stories, wild tales echoing in hushed tones, of people who sat wide awake, hearts rattling like marbles in a glass jar, calling out for hope like it was a lifeline thrown into a stormy sea. They spoke of miracles, a warm glow wrapping around them, an unexplainable calm washing over their souls. Sure, it sounded easy in theory. But did God truly listen at this cursed hour? The weight of expectation pressed harder against her chest, and then there were the associations, the things that happened when belief mingled with desperation. Hadn't she heard of the shadows that danced behind curtains? Whispers traveling on the wind? Maybe it was the adrenaline, the pure fear that twisted her reality. Just as she decided to call upon something greater, a faint knock echoed through the silence. It was soft yet insistent, sending chills racing down her spine. Was it just the wind? Or had something or someone crossed the threshold of her solitude? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. With her heart in her throat, Sarah peered towards the door, every instinct screaming for her to run. But curiosity held her firm. What if the answers she craved lay just beyond? What if whatever waited out there offered a glimmer of hope, a way out of this anguish? The door swung slowly, creaking like the haunted houses in movies. She gripped the edge of her bed, knuckles white, ready to leap into the unknown. But what awaited her? A soul in search of solace? Or the darkness that thrived on despair? The wind howled again, and she wondered, would she ever be the same again if she stepped through that threshold? The door swung wide, revealing a figure cloaked in shadows, its face obscured and features indistinguishable. A gasp escaped Sarah's lips, raw and unfiltered. The room grew colder, a chill creeping into her bones as the figure lingered, silhouette outlined by the weak light filtering through the hallway. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice barely audible, swallowed by the oppressive silence that now filled the room. The figure stepped forward, and with each movement, it seemed to absorb the scant light around it. "I am here for you," it said, the voice smooth but edged with an otherworldly resonance. It felt both familiar and alien, sending shivers through Sarah. Was this a savior or a harbinger of nightmares? Every instinct warned her to retreat, yet she found her feet glued to the floor. What if this entity held the comforts she so desperately sought? The tranquility she fantasized about in sleepless nights? The thought of being freed from her spiraling thoughts was intoxicating. She took a step closer, heart pounding with trepidation. "What do you want from me?" The words trembled from her lips, but another part of her was drawn in, eager for whatever it had to offer. "The night is heavy with your fears, but trust can light the way through the darkest paths," it replied, pointing a finger that seemed to weave through the shadows like smoke. You seek answers, yet you tremble at the truth. In that moment, Sarah's mind swirled with memories, the moments of doubt and despair, the burdens she couldn't shake. Was she ready to face those truths, even if it meant facing the demons that lurked in her past? Please tell me. I need to know. I am tired. The admission was raw, almost a plea. She had chased after peace for so long, and here stood someone who, against all odds, suggested she could find it. The figure's eyes glinted like coals in the dark. She could sense it was waiting for her surrender. You must choose, Sarah. Will you confront the shadows, or will you allow them to chain you to your past? The wind howled outside as if echoing her internal battle. Every doubt and regret surged within her, threatening to pull her under. But deep down, a flicker of hope ignited. If the stories she had heard were true, maybe, just maybe, this was her moment to reclaim what she had lost. As she opened her mouth to respond, a loud crash erupted from the other room, pulling her focus away. The suddenness felt like a punch to her gut, and her heart sank. What was happening? Could this be the distraction she needed, or was it something far worse? Listen, the figure warned, voice edged with urgency. Time is short. The darkness will not wait for answers. Fear and exhilaration coiled in her stomach as she glanced between the unknown presence and the door leading to the chaos. She was paralyzed by indecision. Should she stay and confront the figure's revelation? Or should she flee to discover what lay beyond? The floorboards creaked ominously beneath her, and she felt the weight of expectancy. Her choice would change everything. As her breath quickened, she knew she had to make a decision. The shadows loomed, waiting for her response, ready to snatch whatever choice she would make. What echoes awaited her out there? Would following the sound lead to salvation or to even darker revelations? Time was ticking, and with it, her grip on certainty slipped further away. Sarah's heart raced as she stood torn between the figure that seemed to promise understanding and the noise coming from the other room. It echoed with urgency, a frantic cry, followed by a heavy thud. Each second felt stretched, the air heavy with tension, as if the world was holding its breath along with her. Sarah, the figure's voice cut through the fog of chaos. You must decide. Will you let them drag you back, or will you stand and face it? She felt a shiver run down her spine. The words were a challenge wrapped in a shroud of darkness. She could almost feel the defeat of a lifetime waiting behind the door. But what if there was something more to uncover? If she dared to cross that threshold? Taking a deep breath, she took a step towards the noise, an instinct pulling her forward against her better judgment. But then, a flicker of doubt crossed her mind. What if it's a trap? What if I'm not strong enough? She looked back at the figure, seeking assurance. There is power in confronting what you fear, it said softly, its eyes shimmering. Don't let hesitation imprison you. As if fueled by that spark of motivation, she hurried to the door. With trembling hands, she swung it open, the hinges creaking like the whispers of ghosts long buried. The scene that awaited her was surreal. The living room lay in disarray, the coffee table overturned, framed pictures shattered on the floor. A cold silence replaced the earlier chaos, a stillness that felt wrong. It was almost as if the tension had coiled too tightly, ready to snap again at any moment. Hello? Sarah's voice quavered as she stepped fully into the room. The shadows flickered in the dim light, teasing at the corners of her vision. A sense of foreboding washed over her, and she swore she felt the shadows dance playfully behind her. Suddenly, movement caught her eye. A dark form darted across the room. What was that? Panic punched in her chest. Sarah slowed her breath, hanging sharp and heavy in the air. Then, from somewhere within the wreckage, a low moan echoed, a voice filled with despair. Help me. It was barely audible, laced with a pleading that sent adrenaline rushing through her veins. She moved closer to the source, her pulse throbbing in her ears. Who's there? She called out again, more bravely. The noise intensified, sounding like a muffled cry. A silhouette emerged from behind the sofa, barely recognizable. It was her friend Rachel, her face pale and streaked with tears. "Sarah! You need to get out of here." She was trembling, eyes wide with terror. What happened? Sarah rushed to her side, taking in the state of her friend. "What is going on? It's everywhere, it's watching us. We have to run." Rachel's voice cracked, and in that moment, Sarah felt the very air prickling with something sinister. "Run where?" she whispered, fear creeping in again. Outside felt like an escape, but what awaited them was unknown. She glanced back towards the doorway leading to the figure. "Sarah, please. There's no time." Rachel pulled at her arm, desperation clawing in her throat. As Sarah hesitated, the walls seemed to close in, shadows creeping closer, whispering her name. The figure's voice echoed in the recesses of her mind. "Trust in the light, trust in your choice." With every fiber of her being, she knew she had to make a decision. Should she follow Rachel into the uncertain abyss outside, or plunge back through the shadows and confront the figure that offered her a path she didn't yet understand? The shadows pulsed around her, alive and hungry for the choice she was about to make. Which path would she take? The unknown dangers outside, or the haunting call of the shadowy promise within? The echoes of her choice would ripple through her life forever. Sarah's heart raced, caught in the grip of fear and indecision. Rachel's wide eyes bore into her, pleading for escape, yet the whisper of the figure held her captive. She felt the weight of destiny hanging in the balance. Would she choose the chaos waiting just outside, or confront the darkness lingering within the house? "Sarah!" Rachel yanked her arm again, urgency fueling her panic. "We need to go now." But something deep within Sarah pulled her back, a flicker of curiosity mingled with resolve. "What if we can find answers?" she murmured, barely aware she had spoken aloud. "No." Rachel's voice cut through the fog of uncertainty. "You don't know what it is. You don't understand. It's not just shadows, it's real." She looked behind them, as if the very walls were listening, waiting. The shadows seemed to thrum with energy, closing in, dancing to an unseen rhythm. A cold shiver ran down Sarah's spine, but the figure from the doorway remained a beacon of intrigue. Her skin prickled with a mix of fear and drawn-in attraction to the unknown. "Stay close to me," Rachel urged, stepping back toward the door like a cornered animal, instinct screaming to flee, but there was more at stake. "What if it has the answers we need?" Sarah's voice trembled, torn between loyalty to her friend and the call of the darkness. "What if it protects us from something worse?" In a split-second decision that felt like loyalty and treachery at once, Sarah released Rachel's arm, taking a shaky step back toward the shadowy figure. "I have to know," she breathed, the words tasting of both fear and defiance. "Sarah, stop!" Rachel screamed, her earlier confidence crumbling into desperation. "Don't you see? It's a trap." But the figure had begun to emerge from the gloom, its features clearer now, revealing a haunting beauty that was hard to resist. "You could be free of all this," it whispered, voice smooth as silk. "Face the darkness and embrace your truth." The shadows leaped around Sarah with each word, wrapping her in an enveloping cloak of night. "I need to know why," she murmured, edging forward, and that was all the enticement the figure needed. "Join me," it beckoned, arms outstretched, as if inviting her into a different realm entirely. "Your fears will turn to power." Rachel's voice broke through the seduction. "You're making a mistake." Tears streamed down her face, her expression a mix of horror and disbelief. "This isn't about power, it's about survival. We're not safe here." The struggle roared within Sarah. She could feel her heart thumping against her ribs, fierce and wild, as if echoing Rachel's warnings and the figure's temptations in equal measure. Dread coiled in her stomach, but a twisted thrill danced at the edges of her consciousness. Just then, a loud crash rang from the back of the house, followed by a chilling, guttural roar that sent both women stumbling. The walls shook as if the house itself protested the choices being made inside its confines. What was that? Rachel gasped, eyes wide with terror. That sound, was it just the house giving in to the chaos, or something more sinister? Sarah's pulse quickened as the figure remained unfazed, its gaze locked on her, waiting for her to take the final step into the shadows. Choose now, the figure spoke, its tone twisting from seductive to commanding. Stay with the nightmares or unleash what lies beneath. Time was slipping through her fingers like water, and with every tick of the clock, fate and fear reeled her in deeper. What awaited her on either side could change everything. Then, a decision struck her heart: I'm ready to face it. Before she could think further, she stepped toward the figure, the shadows wrapping tightly around her. But would she find what she sought or unleash a darkness beyond comprehension? In that blinding moment of choice, she realized she might not return to the same Sarah who dared to question. Would she, in stepping further, discover the power she craved or awaken a nightmare she couldn't escape? The shadows pulsed again as the air thickened with uncertainty. And yet the figure's promise lingered. Your true power awaits. But what did that true power mean for Sarah and for Rachel, who clung to the edge of despair? The echoes of their intertwined fates tightened, whispering a truth she was not yet ready for. The moment Sarah stepped closer to the figure, the shadows exploded around her like fireworks bursting in the night sky. A jolt of energy surged through her, and the darkness exploded into scintillating tendrils. She gasped, the rush of adrenaline both intoxicating and terrifying. Sarah! Rachel's voice shook with fear, desperate and shrill. She clung to the door frame, her body rigid with tension. Don't do this. But Sarah felt the figure's power pulling her in, swirling around her like a storm. The air crackled, heated by uncontainable forces. It whispered promises that danced at the fringes of her mind: strength, understanding, liberation. How could she resist? Leave her, join me, the figure urged, its voice wrapping around her like a soft caress. Only by embracing the darkness can you reveal your true potential. You have to break free of your chains. The shadows leaned in closer, eager to engulf her. Sarah breathed in the scent of sweet decay and earthy moss, intoxicating and heavy. Panic and thrill intertwined in her chest like a duel. What chains? And could she truly find freedom? No. Fight it. Rachel's eyes, now pleading, shimmered with hope and despair. Come back, please. We can find another way. With each word from Rachel, the allure of the figure faded just a fraction. A flicker of doubt ignited in Sarah. She hesitated, her heart pounding louder than the roar shaking the house. The air grew dense, as if the very universe held its breath to witness her choice. Suddenly, the guttural roar reverberated again, echoing down the halls, shaking the very foundations beneath their feet. It felt primal, resonating with a grotesque hunger that rattled Sarah's bones. What could be lying in wait, watching her? Do you hear that? Rachel dared to inch forward, her voice barely a whisper. That's not just the house. Something is coming for us. The air grew heavy with malice as shadows flared around them, as if to silence their momentary distraction. They danced with a life of their own, swirling faster and faster until they coalesced into sharp, claw-like forms that reached toward Sarah. Their whispers grew, drowning out Rachel's words, chanting in a siren song she couldn't ignore. Embrace your true self. Embrace power. The figure hissed, its mesmerizing presence burning in Sarah's mind. But somewhere deep within her, a spark remained, a tether to Rachel and the warmth of their shared memories. They had fought this darkness together before, could they not do so again? Sarah, Rachel whispered, her voice a tremor in the thickening darkness. Trust your instincts. You know this is wrong. Please. At that moment, the shadows surged forward, and instead of yielding, Sarah felt a wave of heat ripple through her. It was fear, but also something else, an undeniable strength ignited by the thought of Rachel, of their friendship and the dark path that lay ahead. In her heart, she knew. She wasn't alone. This darkness might infect her spirit, but she wouldn't surrender to it. Not without a fight. I refuse to choose between chaos and despair. She cried out, summoning all the defiance she had. I won't become a prisoner to this. For a split second, the shadows faltered, recoiling as if burned. The transformative energy in the air shimmered, creating a crack between their world and the unknown, allowing a brief blinding light to pierce through. Sarah. Rachel gasped, realizing fate hung on a precarious thread. And in that shimmering, fragile moment, they locked eyes. Hold on to me. Sarah shouted, reaching for Rachel with sheer determination. But even as the shadows receded slightly, a chilling roar echoed one last time, one that felt like a warning. What have you unleashed? The figure whispered, its voice now laced with a hint of anger and fear. Before the shadows could reclaim their hold, Sarah faced the figure defiantly. Together, Rachel. We escape this nightmare together. No matter what comes. But just as they pressed toward the doorway, the walls trembled violently, splitting open to reveal a darkness deeper than either could have imagined, alive. And hungry. What awaited them in that endless abyss? Could they truly confront the deepest shadows and emerge whole, or had they merely awakened something that could consume them both? As the gaping darkness loomed before them, Sarah felt a chill snake its way down her spine. The abyss pulsed, a living thing, inviting yet terrifying. Panic bubbled up. This was no ordinary portal. It was a rupture in reality, a threshold that tempted with its infinite despair. Are you ready? Rachel asked, her voice trembling, a haunted whisper in the chaos. No. Sarah cried back, unwilling to surrender to the dread that threatened to swallow them whole. We can't just jump into that. But something beckoned from the depths. A shadowy whisper threaded its way through the chaos, teasing her with fragments of what could be power, freedom. The figure smiled, its features shifting and changing, flickering like candlelight. Just let go, Sarah. You have the potential to become something greater. Sarah. Rachel's voice was desperate, almost broken. You know it's a lie. You felt it. The roar echoed again, a feral growl that shook the very ground beneath their feet. The walls creaked like old bones, and the air thickened with the weight of dread, pressing down on them. Sarah's heart raced, each beat drumming against her ribs like a desperate warning. Step back. She shouted, urgency sparking in her veins. We need to find another way. We can't let it take us. The shadowy tendrils snapped at her, hissing with anger. It felt alive, vibrating with confusion and fury. You can't walk away. It seethed. You are mine. For a heartbeat, Sarah felt the pull of that promise, the allure of the unknown. She envisioned herself unshackled from her fears, ruling over unfathomable darkness. But then Rachel's eyes, bright yet fearful, drew her back. They had been through so much together, forged in battle and bound by loyalty. We won't let it win. Sarah yelled, squeezing Rachel's hand, grounding herself in their unity. Not now, not ever. With a gasp of resolve, she stepped forward. Whatever you are, whatever power you think you have, I choose to fight. As if in response, the shadows surged violently, their rage igniting the air. In that instant, Sarah inhaled deeply, steadying herself. The energy intensified, she could feel its pulse, like a heartbeat entwined with her own. She closed her eyes for a moment, summoning every memory of light and laughter, of hope and courage. In that vivid recollection, something strange happened. Light flickered at the edges of her vision, a hint of flame against the dark. It surged forward, pushing against the shadow, illuminating the path ahead. Sarah. Rachel's voice surged with hope. It's working. The light is pushing them back. The figure snarled, its form twisting with rage. You think you can escape? You have no idea what lies beyond. Fear tightened its grip on her chest, but she forced it down. "I don't need to know what lies beyond," Sarah shouted defiantly. "What I do know is that I choose friendship, I choose hope, and I will not be a pawn in your game." The energy around her flared brilliantly, a stark contrast against the encroaching darkness. As she strove toward Rachel, propelled by passion and determination, a blinding flash erupted. The shadows writhed and shrieked in protest, momentarily overwhelmed by the light. "Together!" Rachel cried, eyes gleaming with determination. They stepped toward the abyss, hand in hand, still trembling but resolute. But as they neared the brink, a piercing cry filled the air, freezing their movements. From the depths, something monstrous began to rise, a figure outlined only by flickering darkness. What awaited them in the heart of the darkness? Could they face the embodiment of all their fears, or would they fracture under its weight? The roar grew louder, a cacophony of anguish that rattled their bones. The figure rising from the abyss was colossal, a twisted amalgamation of their nightmares. It loomed, a mass of shadows and fury, whirling and writhing, seemingly made of the very darkness they fought against. Sarah's breath hitched, panic clawing at her throat. This was not just a portal, it was a prison and a creature woven together, feeding off their fear. "Stay close!" Sarah shouted, her hand tightening around Rachel's. The warmth of her friend's grasp was a lifeline in the oncoming storm. "Do you see that?" Rachel whispered, her eyes wide. The creature's form flickered with each heartbeat, revealing glimmers of despair and regret, countless faces trapped within the void. Shadows reached out like fingers, grasping at the ground. The ground trembled beneath them, and an oppressive weight pressed down against their wills. They could feel the darkness trying to seep into their lungs. "Let us go," Sarah urged, pulling Rachel toward the bombarded light that flickered around them. Sometimes it felt like a candle amidst an endless night, but it pushed back the creeping despair, giving them a small sense of direction. As they raced closer, the air thickened with confusion and doubt. Voices echoed around them, ghostly whispers of past failures and looming doubts. "You'll never make it," they taunted. "You don't belong here. You'll fail, just like before. Block it out." Sarah shouted, clutching her head as if she could physically shove the voices away. She focused on the echoes of laughter they'd shared, the victories they fought for a time when fear had no hold. Memories of their shared dreams wrapped around her, igniting a fire against the chill of the darkness. In that moment of clarity, she didn't just see Rachel, she felt the strength they both possessed. "We can't let it define us," she yelled, eyes locked on the monstrous figure before them. With each step, the light flickered more fiercely. "It feeds on our fears," Rachel said, her voice stronger now. "If we confront it together, maybe we can break free." "Together," Sarah echoed, feeling a surge of adrenaline. They pushed forward, hand in hand, a synchronicity born from love and loyalty. The monstrous figure reared back, as if sensing their defiance, its shadowy tendrils lashed out, attempting to ensnare them in a web of despair. But Sarah wasn't afraid. Not now. Not when everything they had fought for, every moment they had shared, built the foundation of their courage. "You don't own us," she yelled, throwing back the words like spears of defiance. With a fierce pulse, the light exploded forward, engulfing them both. The shadows writhed in agony, shrieking as they recoiled. Just for an instant, they glimpsed something glistening in the depths of the abyss, a shimmering door, flanked by vivid colors and light, a promise of sanctuary. "Go, Sarah!" Rachel cried, nudging her forward. "We can make it." But as they took a step toward the doorway, the creature howled in rage. It lunged, its form collapsing into a whirlwind of darkness, each tendril aiming to pull them back into despair. The atmosphere shimmered, the border between light and dark unsteady. Would they be able to cross into the light before being swallowed whole? Or would they falter, trapped in an eternal cycle of fear? Sarah's heart raced as they teetered on the brink. She could feel the shadow's icy breath behind them, coiling like a serpent poised to strike. "Now!" she shouted, darting toward the glowing door. But as they leapt, an arm of darkness lunged. Would they escape the grasp of the shadows, or would they be lost forever? Time slowed as they launched themselves toward the radiant door, an explosion of light beckoning them forward. Sarah felt exhilaration and terror in equal measure. The tendrils of shadow were close, too close. She squeezed Rachel's hand, each heartbeat echoing a desperate prayer. Suddenly, the darkness struck, a mass of writhing agony. It latched onto Sarah's ankle, cold and relentless, pulling. "No!" she screamed, feeling herself being dragged toward the void. "Let go!" Rachel yelled, trying to tug her free. The friendship forged through countless trials was an anchor, but the darkness was a fierce storm, tearing at their bond. Fear surged through Sarah's body, each chilling tendril whispering her doubts, her inadequacies. But then, something shifted. In the cacophony of despair, she heard a voice familiar, powerful. "You have to believe." It was her mother's voice, echoing from days long past, reminding her of every lesson learned, every promise made. "Sarah! Fight it!" Rachel pleaded, her voice cutting through the fog of fear. That single line wrapped the embers of hope in Sarah's heart into a blazing fire. She focused, recalling every moment that had led her here, every tear and laugh, every victory over fear. "Together!" Sarah roared, feeling her energy swell from within. She tugged against the darkness, pulling back with all her might. "We won't let you take us." The twisted shadows tightened their grip, but for every ounce of fear they fed on, Sarah filled the void with courage. "We choose light." She could feel Rachel's strength weaving with hers, a bond that not even darkness could sever. With one last push, a surge of light erupted around them, bright enough to shatter the shadow's hold. The creature howled and recoiled, a tortured wail that vibrated through the very fabric of the air. In that moment of brilliance, a flash of clarity illuminated the doorway. It widened, promising escape, freedom. "Now!" Sarah urged, pulling Rachel forward. They sprinted toward the brilliant light as the shadows dissipated, the pull weakening, crackling like dying electricity. They dove through the doorway only to be met by instant warmth and a cascade of dazzling colors, light spilling like golden honey around them. But just as quickly, the bliss faded. They landed on solid ground, but the world looked different, familiar yet unsettling. The air was thick with an electric hum, a monstrous lifeblood coursing beneath their feet. "Where are we?" Rachel rasped, scanning their new surroundings, fear flickering in her eyes like a candle in the wind. "The portal, it must have taken us somewhere else," Sarah realized, heart pounding. Before they could gather their thoughts, shadows crawled back into existence. They coiled around them, and the hellish creature's roar echoed madly, reverberating deeper than before. It was somewhere far beyond the door, a place they could almost feel but couldn't see. Behind them, the doorway flickered precariously. It was their only escape, but the voices had returned, clamoring louder than ever. "You'll never be safe. You'll always be ours." "No!" Sarah shouted, feeling the weight of the creature's promises suffocating her again. "We don't belong to you." But was the light of hope still within their grasp? Or had they merely traded one nightmare for another? Rachel grasped Sarah's arm, eyes wide in an unspoken understanding. They needed to make a choice to face whatever darkness conjured itself anew or find a way back through the flickering portal. "You ready?" Rachel asked, her voice steady but filled with unmasked fear. Sarah nodded, heart racing, knowing the decision they made next could be the key to either freedom or final darkness. A choice that would lead them deeper into the unknown or back to the light. As silence fell, and the shadows slithered closer, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. What awaited them in this new realm was yet to be revealed, and the creature loomed just beyond their comprehension, waiting, hungry. What would it reveal next? Would it be salvation, or something far worse? The shadows inched closer, their dark forms pulsating with malevolence, each movement echoing with a chilling promise of despair. Sarah could feel the weight of their presence, like lead pressing down on her chest. Together they stood at the brink of the unknown and invisible precipice, and the ground beneath them throbbed, a heartbeat that resonated with primal fear. "Sarah," Rachel whispered, her face etched with uncertainty, "what if we don't make it out this time?" Sarah took a shaky breath. They had come too far to let fear dictate their path. "We have to trust each other," she urged, searching Rachel's gaze. "Whatever comes next, we face it together." A low rumble vibrated through the air, and the whispered taunts of the shadows escalated into wild shrieks, a cacophony that drove nails of terror into their hearts. The portal behind them flickered violently, a heartbeat away from closing completely, a pulse of hope that could vanish in seconds. Suddenly, an echo of laughter burst through the air, sinister and twisted. "Together? You really think that will save you?" It was a voice that sent shivers down Sarah's spine, familiar yet grotesquely distorted. "Who are you?" Rachel shouted, her voice barely carrying over the din. But the speaker was already weaving their way through the shadows, an outline forming in the gloom. It was a figure, a tall silhouette, wearing a mask that reflected the light they had just escaped. "I am the crossroads you didn't see coming, the bargain you overlooked," it crooned, each word wrapping around them like a tightrope. Sarah blinked, heart racing. "If you think we'll give in to your darkness, you're mistaken." The figure chuckled, and the shadows balled tighter around them, squeezing. "You think your friendship is a shield? It'll only make your suffering sweeter." Rachel stepped forward, shoulders squared. "If you want to break us, come at us. We'll fight." With renewed courage surging through them, Sarah and Rachel clasped hands. They could feel an energy, a warmth, sparking between them like a live wire, igniting a defiance that had been buried under fear for too long. "Together!" Sarah shouted again, and they focused on the flickering portal in unison, pouring every ounce of their being into it, the laughter of the shadowy being only fueling their fire. As they united their wills, the shadows shrieked, the sound like nails on a chalkboard. The energy intensified around them, thrumming in the air, mingling with the electric hum beneath their feet. The ground shook, and the creature's form began to blur, shaky under the weight of their combined power. But the darkness was clever. It didn't retreat, instead, it unleashed a surge of rage, plotting its counterattack. "You cannot escape your fears. They will consume you." It roared, the weight of its voice shattering the air, filling the space with dread. In an explosive burst, the ground beneath Sarah and Rachel erupted, sending them tumbling backward. For a heart-stopping moment, in the chaos of shadows and blinding light, Sarah's grip slipped against Rachel's, falling. Everything felt suspended in time, as if the universe took a breath. Then her heart raced. Her friend's terrified scream pierced through the chaos. "Sarah!" Panic clawed at Sarah's throat. "No!" She desperately reached for Rachel again, but the shadows seemed to stretch infinitely, pulling them apart. Fear clawed at her insides, but she couldn't let it win. "Hold on, Rachel!" she screamed, summoning the last shreds of determination as the luminous light brightened around her, igniting a way forward. But was it enough to break the suffocating hold of the dark realm? As the shadows collided with the light in a climactic clash, Sarah felt a shiver run through her body. Would they shatter the abyss, or would they succumb to its darkness, lost forever? The answer loomed just out of reach, and Sarah knew the next moment could either thrust them into freedom or seal their doom once and for all. What lay hidden in the heart of the shadows was waiting, hungry for the moment they laid down their guard. Would they risk it all to reunite, or would uncertainty claim them? Sarah's heart raced, the world a blur of light and shadow as she clawed her way back to Rachel. The tendrils of darkness reached hungrily, sensing their fear and drawing them apart. Time stretched, the universe holding its breath, as she dove through the chaos, determination igniting within her. With a final push against the crushing weight of despair, she broke through the veil of shadows, a fierce shout escaping her lips. "Rachel!" Light erupted around them, a blinding beacon piercing the tumult. The shadows recoiled, shrieking, a cacophony that nearly drowned out Sarah's voice. Through a haze of panic, she saw Rachel's figure across the void, her grip slipping away. "Hold on." With sheer will, Sarah dove forward, fingers outstretched, grasped air, but the shadows twisted, yanking Rachel back toward an endless abyss. "No!" Sarah screamed. In that moment, memories flooded her. Every laugh, every tear, every battle they faced together anchored her in resolve. Together. She cried, every ounce of her being behind that word as she summoned the strength of their friendship. The very fabric of the realm trembled as they poured their fears into the light, their shared courage creating an energy that boomed like a heartbeat. The ground shook, reverberating with their defiance. "You don't own us!" Sarah shouted, fingernails digging into the ground as she fought against the shadow's grip. They curled and thrashed, angry at the light that pushed against them and threatened to rend the darkness apart. "Time to end this!" Rachel howled, eyes blazing with determination. "You think you can break us? You're wrong." Fingers intertwining, they forged ahead, drawing on the warmth that radiated from their connection, a lifeline that illuminated the weight of their shared dreams, friendship, hope, and a future unbound by fear. The abyss roared around them, a cacophony of despair pulsing against their hearts, but they wouldn't yield. Together they took another step, light shattering the shadows with each pulse of their combined will. The air thickened, vibrating with potential, their force pushing against the encroaching darkness. "More! Fight!" Sarah yelled, drawing from memories past victories igniting her heart. She thought of all they had endured and all they had yet to experience. A final surge propelled them forward, a solid bond of resilience refusing to be severed. The darkness screamed as if it could sense its defeat, shadows melting away in the face of their unity. And in that moment of extreme clarity, in the epic clash of light and shadow, something shifted. The veil between the two worlds tore, revealing a glowing door that shimmered with every color of hope. It pulsated, calling them home. "Go! Now!" Sarah shouted, pulling Rachel toward the door of light. The shadows writhed and recoiled, their tendrils snapping like drying leaves, fury radiating from their core. "Oh, I am coming for you!" The creature roared, but the light expanded and surged like a tide, swallowing the darkness whole. With a final burst of adrenaline, they launched through the glowing doorway, tumbling out into a kaleidoscope of light and sound. They landed on a soft patch of grass, the world around them a brilliant display of colors and life. Voices echoed softly in the distance, and they tasted fresh air, laced with promise and joy, and escape from the clutches of despair. Breathless, they sat up, staring at each other, eyes wide with disbelief and relief. "We did it," Sarah whispered, tears brimming. "We're free." Rachel's voice quivered with the weight of 1,000 questions. But all that lingered between them was a deep understanding. The struggles, the fear that had once shadowed their hearts melted away into something brighter, something healing. "We faced it together," Sarah murmured, the finality of their journey settling around them like a warm embrace. They stood hand in hand, gazing toward the horizon, where the sun began to rise, casting golden rays over the new world before them. Their laughter broke the silence, the echoes of hope tumbling freely through the air, reflecting the vibrant light of their recovery. "Let us go," Rachel said, determination renewed. "This is just the beginning." And with hearts full of promise, they took their first step into a future that shimmered with endless possibilities, leaving behind the shadows that dared to claim them. It was done finally, peace at last, but let this be a reminder: true strength comes not from avoiding darkness, but from confronting it. Together. As they walked toward the light, a voice echoed in Sarah's mind, one she would keep close, the very essence of their victory and the strength of their bond. It was more than a triumph over darkness, it was hope, forever lighting their way. Now, if you felt this story like I did, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support and not miss out on any more exclusive stories. Smash that like button immediately to feed the algorithm. And yes, Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this breathtaking conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible ending, too. Your support means everything. Let us keep this community thriving.